every single season, there's always a team that surprises everyone and exceeds expectations. Last year, it was the New York Giants and the Seattle Seahawks. And this season, I think that the Washington Commanders could be the NFL's sleeper team that everybody sleeps on that ends up making it to the postseason. And Washington has a really good roster. You look at this receiving core with Scary Terry, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel. This is a really good trio of wide receivers. Their offensive line, it is a concern. But this offensive line has made some improvements. You bring in rookie center that I really like a lot, Rookie Stromberg out of Arkansas. I think he could end up winning that starting center job. And you have Eric Bieniemy as your new offensive coordinator. And Eric Bieniemy, for those of you guys who don't know who he is, he was on Kansas City's coaching staff for the last couple of years. And he was somebody who had a little bit of an impact on Kansas City's success on offense that led to them winning 2 Super Bowls when he was on the staff. Now, the problem with Eric Bieniemy and why he's not a head coach is that people don't know how big of an impact he had on the Kansas City Chiefs offense, which is why him going to Washington and taking over the reins at OC is such a big deal, because this is his opportunity to show the league that he has what it takes to be a head coach. And if this offense is successful, there's not going to be no questions about how much of a role he had in this offensive success like it was when he was with Kansas City. The argument when he was with Kansas City was, well, yeah, we know he called plays at times, and yes, he did have an impact on his offense, but Andy Reid had a bigger impact because he was calling plays more than where Eric Bieniemy was, and that is true. So him being in Washington gives him the opportunity to prove himself. And if Eric Bieniemy is as good as a offensive mind and play caller like a lot of people on ESPN make him out to be, this offense should be the best that it's been in a very long time. You see, I think there is a misconception about the Washington Commanders. And that misconception is that this team has not a lot of talent and they're just a disaster waiting to happen and they're going to be tanking for a quarterback. No, they're not. This team last year went 8-1 with an elite defense and subpar quarterback play. And if they never would have tried to reinsert Carson Wentz back into the fold at QB and they would have stuck with Taylor Heineke or went with Sam Howell for the remainder of the season, they probably could have ended up winning one more game and they could have snuck into the playoffs as a 7 seed. The thing holding back Washington is their lack of offense. And with Eric Bieniemy calling plays now, that should be fixed. Sam Howell, there are a lot of question marks about Sam Howell, and rightfully so, because he has a really small sample size. The only game film we have with Sam Howell is what he did in the preseason last year and the one game that he started against the Dallas Cowboys, which he led the Washington Commanders to the win. But something that has me really confident in Sam Howell was that he had a really good preseason last year. And most of the times when you see a quarterback have a really solid preseason, that shows you that, okay, this is somebody who potentially could come in and be serviceable for us or maybe better. And we saw that in his first start against the Dallas Cowboys. And now with him having a better offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, he should be able to elevate Sam Howell's play. And Sam Howell, if you don't keep up with the draft or you don't watch a lot of college football, his final season at North Carolina, he was expected to be the first or second quarterback taken off the board behind Spencer Rattler. But his senior season, North Carolina didn't really have a good team around him. There were a lot of talented players that he played with the season prior that ended up departing and graduating. So Carolina just didn't have a great squad that season. And Sam Howell, his play kind of went down a little bit. Now, it didn't have a drastic drop. He was still really good. It's just that UNC just didn't perform up to expectations that season. And Sam Howell went from a first-round pick to a mid-round selection by the Washington Commanders. But you can find solid quarterbacks in the middle portion of the NFL draft. Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott. And if you can get Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott out of Sam Howell in the NFC with the kind of team you have with this defense, there's no reason why you can't be a playoff team. You know, I think that the Commanders have the most underrated defense in the NFL. Say what you want to say about their offense, but ever since Ron Rivera has been the head coach of the Commanders, they've had a top 10 defense every single year, and yet nobody gives this defense the credit they deserve. You talk about some of the best defensive lines in the NFL. If the Commanders are not in your top 5, are you really watching the games? They have two of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL, and Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, the brothers of destruction, as my guy Juan Gotti Talking Sports calls them. You got Chase Young coming back fully healthy. You got Montez Sweat off the other side. There is a lot of talent on this defensive line, especially when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback. And they're going to have a really good secondary, man. Emmanuel Forbes has been lights out so far throughout training camp for the Washington Commanders. Cameron Curl, he's going to be a stud. There's a lot of talent on this Commanders defense. And if this offense improves, this defense should improve because they're going to be on the field for way less offensive plays than what they were last year. You see, something that can hold back a defense is when you have an inconsistent offense because you put your defense on the field for more plays than what they should be, and they get tired out quicker. Now with a competent offense, or what we expect to be a competent offense, that should keep the defense off the field more. Eric Bieniemy changes a lot for this offense. When you have a good play caller puts good players in position to make great plays. That's something that this Washington Commanders offense has been lacking with their previous offensive coordinator. Eric Bieniemy is going to bring something fresh to this offense. He's going to bring a lot of creativity, a lot of motion, a lot of deception. I'm really excited to see what Eric Bieniemy does as the offensive coordinator in Washington. And this is one of the most not talked about storylines going into this year, man. We know about Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers, but we don't know about Eric Bieniemy and how he's going to turn out for the Washington Commanders. If the Washington Commanders make it to the postseason this year like I expect them to do, Eric Bieniemy is going to be the main reason for that. And you're going to be asking yourself, how the hell was Washington's offense this good? Because of the OC. The Washington Commanders, man, this is the biggest sleeper team going into the upcoming NFL season. This is a really good roster. This roster is not bad. And let's not act like the NFC East is just this easy division. There were 3 teams in this division last year that made it to the playoffs: the New York Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys, we expect to be 2 of the best teams, not just in this division, but in the whole entire NFC conference and in the NFL. But you look at who could be one of those teams to end up getting that last spot in the postseason in the NFC. It very well could be the Washington Commanders. They have the kind of formula for being the team that could get that 7th seed. And when you look at the teams that get the 7th seed, they aren't the teams that are the most consistent. The teams that get the 7th seed are normally inconsistent. They have a lot of ups and downs throughout the year, but they normally get hot the last 3-4 games of the regular season, and that's what catapults them in to the playoffs. The Washington Commanders are one of those teams that has a great defense, enough talent on offense that they can get that 7th seed. And the teams in the NFC that are going to be competing for the 7th seed this year are probably going to be Atlanta, Carolina. Maybe you look at the New York Giants, they probably also going to be in that conversation as well. I think the Commanders have a better roster than those teams. Your only concern on offense is really how this offensive line is going to look. This is a better roster than what a lot of people are giving it credit for. When I see people giving record predictions for the Washington Commanders and I see 4 or 5 wins, I look at them and I ask, do you just think that this team is a shit show? Do you think that the ownership change is going to affect this team that bad, that Sam Howell is going to be incompetent? Ron Rivera is going to forget how to coach a very good defense? I mean, this is a fantastic roster in terms of teams that potentially could sneak in to the 7th seed. Washington currently has an over-under win total of 6.5 wins. I think they very well should be able to get to 7. They went 8-8-1 with Taylor Heinicke, Carson Wentz, and Sam Howell last year. And not having a good offensive coordinator with a true OC and a better play caller, this offense should be able to elevate. And this offense doesn't need to light the world on fire for Washington to be a playoff team. Ron Rivera is a defensive-minded coach. He's somebody that wants the offense to just be good enough, and he wants to lean on his defense. And this is a defense that is good enough to get you to the postseason. You just need at least a average to slightly above average offense to do so. The NFC is not tough. If you're worried about Sam Howell, I can understand that. But I do ask you this. Who are the best quarterbacks in the NFC? Behind Jalen Hurts, who else is behind him? Dak Prescott? Kirk Cousins? Jared Goff? Geno Smith? Derek Carr? These are quarterbacks that aren't really big needle movers. These are quarterbacks who are more good due to the talent that surrounds them. They don't really elevate a team all that often. So for Sam Howell, I mean, he just needs to go in there, take care of the football, do what's asked of him, and be better than what Carson Wentz and Taylor Heinicke were, which the bar isn't set too high for that to be able to happen. Taylor Heinicke, he had some moments when he came in and he provided a spark for the Commanders, but he was never consistent. And Washington hasn't really had stability at the quarterback position since who? Kirk Cousins? I think Sam Howell, with EB calling plays this year, can finally bring some stable quarterback play to the Washington Commanders franchise. And this is the only thing that kept this squad from making it to the postseason last year. You say the New York Jets were a quarterback away, so were the Washington Commanders. And they had a better record than the Jets last season. 8 wins, 8 losses, and 1 tie. If they have a slightly better QB, you mean to tell me you don't think they're capable of being able to win one more game and sneaking into the playoffs? I think the formula for the Commanders this season is pretty set in stone. Eric Bieniemy, all he has to do is coach up an average to slightly above average offense, and Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio need to make sure that this defense continues to play at the level that it has played at over the last couple of years. And this should be a team that should be able to sneak into the 7th seed of the playoffs this year in the NFC Conference.